Joined by SABC News international editor Sophie Mokoena, and we're monitoring developments from here until we know that 13 of the first hostages are expected to be released any moment now. Thereafter, once they are safe on Israeli land, we've got about 24 women and 15 teenagers, 39 Palestinian prisoners who will then also be handed over and freed. So, Sophie, just before Sarah joined us, we were actually speaking about the geopolitical landscape. And on Tuesday, we saw President Cyril Ramaphosa chairing that extraordinary joint BRICS meeting, and a joint, declaration obviously being adopted. Given the representatives that also attended, and given the countries in BRICS, I wonder how that became a test for the BRICS nations, some of which are not necessarily the biggest fans of the ICC at large, after having reported Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the ICC for war crimes and war crimes against humanity.
Well, clearly the BRICS group, you have countries that are friends with the United States of America. That doesn't mean South Africa doesn't interact with the United States of America politically, security, and also in relation to trade and investment. How can I leave out health matters? But you are correct. I think it was a difficult one, particularly where you had these other countries that are going to join BRICS in January, your United Arab Emirates, yes, Saudi, and also particularly Iran. And you had the president of Iran was quite firm in relation to how the group must support the Palestinians. And therefore, there will be those tensions, and this tension will also play itself in the G20, because in the G20, you again have most of these BRICS member countries being part of the G20. And in the G20, you have the G7 member countries, almost like your West Alliance and the United States of America. So I think the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, summed it well when he said the world is drifting apart. You have these groups, and at times with all these challenges, the tensions will be there. And also, you know that it looks like we've forgotten that there's a war in Ukraine, and that war is still ravaging the country. And also, it is also contributing to the challenges of peace in the world. And we see the Security Council at the moment very weak, and the Permanent Five at all times when there's a resolution, one country uses its veto power to just exercise the muscle. And we are in a very, very difficult time globally.
Well, Sophie, early on you spoke about the issue of trust. In fact, you raised it to Sarah, just in accordance with international humanitarian law. I wonder if you could explain how that is coming to the fore at this point. And also, during that press briefing by the Prime Minister of Belgium and the Prime Minister of Spain, they spoke about the need for more access points beyond Egypt at Rafah crossing. Do you think this is something that is also going to be realized in the near future?
The 4 days is not going to lead to that. But if you extend this truce, you can be able to deal with that. In relation to the international law, both sides, they want to interpret international law in their own way. In the same way we had that problem with Russia and Ukraine. You have a situation where the international law is clear. I mean, attacking hospitals, it is a no, 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 no. But you have those who are supporting Israel saying that it's part of defending Israel, because if those hospitals are used for dubious acts, there's no way you can leave the hospitals out. And therefore, that is why I'm saying every country is trying to justify its action, its position, or its posture. And therefore, it is becoming very difficult. But the good thing is that we have the International Court of Justice. These issues will be ventilated before the court in February, when the court is dealing with the Israel-Palestine matter. You also have the International Criminal Court. This is the time where the International Criminal Court must demonstrate that it doesn't look away when certain individuals are involved in violation of human rights and war crime. You know that the International Criminal Court deals with individuals, the perpetrators, while the International Court of Justice is dealing with states. And therefore, all these two important institutions must interpret the implementation, the violation of this international law. And fortunately, next month, very soon, there's going to be a summit at the UN where the state parties of the Rome Statute, members of the International Criminal Court, will be meeting, and these issues will be ventilated.
Sophie, you know, we spoke about the conflict in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas having regional implications as well. And so on your screens live, obviously, as we imminently await the release of those hostages as per the terms and conditions brokered according to the ceasefire, what's coming to the fore on that front? The Arab nations, early on, we did speak about their role and the shift in geopolitics, but Hezbollah, you know, the violence spilling over into other countries surrounding Israel. What concerns arise for you at this point?
Well, I think many people are hoping that this conflict will not engulf the whole region because it can be catastrophic. But we've already seen there's a spin-off, particularly in Lebanon, with Israel hunting the Hezbollah. And therefore, I think that is why many countries are working hard to ensure that you arrive at a permanent ceasefire so that you arrest this situation. It will derail many things. It will affect the supply chain. In the same way, the supply chain was affected during the start of the war in Ukraine until countries could figure out what to do. I mean, this is a Gulf region. This is the Middle East. This is where you have oil. This is where you have gas. And therefore, it's very important to resolve this problem. And I think ahead of the COP28 in the United Arab Emirates, this issue is going to dominate the talks on the margins of COP28, and therefore people not focusing on the challenge that we are facing, the challenge of climate change, and therefore you must resolve this problem.
What about the future of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu himself? Given the criticisms and the pressures that have been, you know, he's been having to face, we're also looking at the role of the United States of America. They're heading into elections next year. And there's also been pressure on that front from its citizens to stop the escalation. What are you observing on that front?
Well, I think in relation to that, there are lots of issues that needs to be addressed. And therefore, I think the international community must apply its mind. They must be able to resolve all these questions that you have raised. And they must find a solution to these protracted challenges that the world is facing because they are affecting the global economy. And therefore, this will lead to a broader insecurity and restlessness of nations, not only a nation in a particular country. And it will lead to insecurity. And I think it is important for the UN also to do something. But as I pointed out, the way the UN was structured after the Second World War, many countries were excluded, and particularly the important organ, the Security Council, where decisions are being made. It is very important to bring countries together to agree on a common position. So you just have to use diplomacy, sometimes bilateral, to try and unlock where there are locks and to ensure that the doors are opened for people to come in a room and talk and plan a better world.
Well, Sophie, let's just recap on the back of those sentiments, what's transpiring, those visuals live on your screens. We're in fact also joined by SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena, bringing you the latest there. We're imminently awaiting the release of those hostages. We know that about 13 of the first hostages are expected to be released any moment now. So live on your screens, both sides, we know that Israel will release 39 Palestinian hostages, 24 women and 15 teenagers in occupied West Bank from its military prison on the grounds that 13 hostages are released, and a delegation from the Red Cross as well as the Egyptian security will be overseeing that. So we are rather imminently waiting to see how that is going to be taking place, because we know that just after 4 p.m. Central African time, that is when that was all set to unfold, and we're still waiting for that to occur. We also know that much needed aid is also going to be provided to Gaza, given the humanitarian crisis that is unfolding there. So we're bringing you the latest. We're monitoring developments as it unfolds.